Hi everyone, I'm Arun Malve and welcome back to gudshuis. If you're enjoying this tutorial so far and learning something new, take a quick moment to like, share and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell icon. In our previous video, we have installed and configured Proxmox VE on the HomeLab server successfully. And now in this video, I will walk you through creating the Ubuntu Server 2204 template. So we're going to use this for creating of Kubernetes cluster, and this will be like quick and efficiently for us. So let's make sure we have the IP address which we have configured from the Proxmox. Let's type it in the address bar. I'm using the Brave browser, okay? And once you type in the IP address, you see like your connection is not private, and it will ask you to proceed to the IP address which is unsafe. I would say like you can go ahead and trust this as IP address which we have got it from the Proxmox, and click on advanced, and you will see like proceed to continue. Once you click on it, it will ask you to log in with the Proxmox VE login that we have created earlier with username and the password. Once you enter the credentials, you will set up which you have set up in the installation part. So you will be able to see a default page once you log in to the Proxmox VE environment 8 version, which I'm currently on that. So once you're here, you'll be able to see an overview of the Proxmox interface. On the left hand side, we have the data center view. There's also quick access to the documentation and node level controls. Now let's move on creating the Ubuntu template. Let's click on the tab. It says create VM in the top right corner under the general. Under the general tab, under the create virtual machine, it will ask some information like node, VM ID, name. So in the VM ID, I will use like 5000, and under the name, I will use it as UbuntuTemplate 2204. Yeah, and you can uncheck the box which is advanced and if required, and once you fill in all the details which looks to be correct, and click on the next tab. Okay, I'll change it from Ubuntu template to Ubuntu 2204. This is very crucial when you're creating a template, to make sure you write down the correct information so that you can utilize it under the data center. So uncheck the option which says start at boot and click on next. The next tab, it says OS. So in this options, what I'm going to do here is in the system configuration, in the OS configuration, I will do not use any media at the moment, so I will be configuring it later point. Under the system, and you see the graphic card, machine firmware, BIOS, and SCSI controller. I'm going to enable the QEMU agent, which is really important. That helps to QEMU agent helps you with the proper shutdown and IP reporting. So leave the other options as default, and let's move on to the disk. So under the disk, I'm going to delete all the information here. So it's because we're going to manually add our own disk later after installing Ubuntu. And once it's done, click on the next tab. Let's move on to the next one, which will be CPU. So there's a lot of information here, extra CPU flags, which I don't want to see it. So what I'm going to do is I'll uncheck the advanced tab and keep it as default. And once I see it's default, I will click on next. I'll keep it as set to 1 core and move on to the next tab, which is memory. And on the memory, I'll select 2048 as default and keep it as simple. And next, move on to the network options. So there are no network devices selected, and I'm going to keep the default as the bridge and the model as it is as default, and I will click on next. So it's because usually uses Virtio and the bridge to VMBRO 0, sorry. And once you see all the information, review all the configuration settings, confirm, and then click on finish. If you want, you can click on advance, uncheck, and click on finish. So now you have a base VM created, which will install Ubuntu 22.04 onto and then convert it into a reusable template. So let's move on to the next section, which will be under the data center. Under PVE, you will see like 5000 ID, which we have created with the name template Ubuntu template 22.04. Let's move on to the next section, preparing of the Cloud-init configuration. So once you check everything which is right under the hardware, I would request to click on the Add tab on the top and click on the Cloud-init drive. So once you click on the Cloud-init drive, you will see some options like bus driver IDE to be selected and set it to 0. And storage, select the local LVM. Make sure you are using the right disk. Check the available and the storage space to confirm and click on Add. Once you click on Add, we should be able to see the Cloud-init. Click on it, and you need to update few information here. Yeah, let me maximize the font here and click on the Cloud-init, and under the options where you see user, password, DNS domain, DNS server, SSH public key, upgrade packages, IP config. So we'll go step by step on creating or updating this information. Click on the user, click on the edit, and then type in the name depending upon your need. And then let's move on to the next section of creating the SSH key. So this is very crucial. So let's move on to the terminal window, type in the ssh-v for the version to see that OpenSSH is installed. If it's not installed, check out my other videos to install the OpenSSH and generating the SSH key. I will also show you in this video how to go step by step and create the SSH key or generate the SSH key. So the better way to go in here is let's try to hit the command, which is ssh-keygen. But before that, I would request, because I'll be using another terminal window, which is like MOBA Extreme, and this is quite good looking, I would say. And let's move on to typing the command ssh space capital V for the version. Once you have this, I would request to type in the another command, which is ssh-keygen, and then accept the default file location and optional enter paraphrase, or leave it blank or leave it empty. Because this is a test, I would request you to go step by step on creating this and make sure all the information what you have entered would be rightful. Now move on to the next section, which we need to check if the public key is being created under the location. I see the public key location is set on to the home directory. Let me open a file explorer, move on to the users, the username, and then .ssh folder, and you'll be able to see that it's already created. So now what we have to do is we need to copy the entire content of the key or load it from the Proxmox VE. Once you have it loaded, make sure you're able to see the SSH public key with your email generated there or updated or uploaded there. Now back to Proxmox, let's see what are the other information which are required here for the virtual machine 5000 Ubuntu for the node PVE. And let's set up, once the username is set up, I would also say, like, let's click on the network configuration, use it for DHCP, so the VM gets an IP addresses dynamically. And once it's there, click on OK. And then we need to also update the password here. We haven't done that, so we need to do that. So it's okay. The DHCP configuration is completed because the networking bit is quite crucial, and we require some of the other information as well. With click on the password, click on edit, make sure you have a default password or a strong password with a combination of number, letters, upper letters or lower letters. Once everything is set right, please check all the information here on this page, which are very crucial for the Cloud-init configuration, because we need to import the cloud image next and finalize the template. So these are really important to make sure all the information what you have put in here is up to date. Okay, there is a pro tip. I would always say, like, always double check all the details before moving forward. Do not rush. Okay, if you're rushing, then you will miss out some of the important information which are critical. So under the data center, under the PVE, you'll be click on the shell. You should be able to see the shell. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get started with the cloud image, that's Ubuntu, and also there are some information here with related to the CPU usage, kernel, boot mode, manager version, repository status, and under the summary. And you can see the uptime is more easily. And let's move on to the terminal and type in ssh root in at the PVE. I don't believe it will work now because we still need to go inside the shell. Let's check. Yep, hostname is not resolved because we do not have an IP address coming through. So let's minimize this and go back to the shell, open in a new window, right click, click on it and click on the shell, and you can click on the extreme.js, and you should see this will open into a new window, or either way you can open it, right click and open in the shell. This will open in a new window because the font is not that clear on the browser, so I like to open it in the console. It is still under the Brave browser, and you should see it's last login, and there's not much information here under the shell, but we'll go ahead and I would navigate you to install, download the Ubuntu 22.04. So we need to first check if we have the required packages which we needed for downloading and installing it. So let's move on to the browser and type in the search bar Ubuntu JME 22.04, and let's check if we could find, and it's always good to filter it with the name. And I see the first one. Let's go ahead and right click and open in the new tab. Okay, select the image. Okay, let's go back to the search and type in the Cloud-init. Sorry for the mistype. And it's because we require some, the cloud images site. So let's navigate, right click on, open a new tab. We need to go to the official Ubuntu cloud image site, not just from any other site. Make sure you're in the right place. Okay, let's scroll down and look for Jamie server cloud imaging AMD 64. That's what I'm looking at in the middle of the screen. Yeah, let me highlight it so that you'll be able to see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on it and copy the link address. Yeah, spot on. And then we'll go back to our Proxmox terminal window and we type in the command get and paste it. I believe the paste would work here. Let's see. Control V, but yeah, paste. Okay. Let me rearrange it properly. It should. I think the paste didn't work. Let's retry to correct the syntax here. And I see it's resolving and connected and now downloading. So we are on the right phase of the downloading part. Once it's downloading, we need to do some other steps for preparing the cloud image. Okay, 37, 38, 39, 42. Okay, that's a good speed. So let's wait for it to be downloaded. So that's the image because we'll be working on the Ubuntu. So we would need some of the application rightful extensions as well, which come along with this image. So we'll be moving on to the next section on enabling the serial console access for our Proxmox virtual machine. So particularly what we're going to do here is under the cloud images or the OS installation, we need to run a command which is qm space set space 5000. Before that, I need to make sure we are on the right node, which is like 5000. I'm looking back into the console of the Proxmox and making sure I have the right node name to 5000, and it's hyphen serial 0 socket. Okay, what this does is like this set up a serial interface of serial port 0 that listens on the Unix socket. So in this case, it allows the Proxmox web UI or the terminal to connect to the VM serial console, just like you would access a headless server with a serial cable. Okay, let me retype it. Let me delete everything. QM set 5000. Okay, and making sure I'm the right node number. It's 5000. I'm rechecking it, to and fro to make sure I'm typing the right command here. Okay, and then --VGA serial 0. What this does is like tells the Proxmox to use the serial console for displaying output instead of a traditional VGA display. Making sure the command is right, moving forward, and the output should say update VM 5000 -serial 0 socket -VGA space serial 0. That's right. Let's move on to the next section. The move command, or rename you could say in the Linux. The command changes the file extension of download Ubuntu Cloud image from img to .qcow2. So it recognized properly by the Proxmox and QEMU based tooling. So let's run this command, which is mv space the name of the image which we have downloaded, and then we'll keep the prefix as same and use .qcow2. What is this qcow2 here? It stands for QEMU copy on write version 2. So it's a disk image formatted under the Proxmox or other virtualization platforms. So there is more information online on the documentation which you could go ahead and see, because it's efficient with the VM state backups, dynamic disk, compressor support, and file support as well. So once it's done, qcow2, mistyped to 1, changing back to 2. and preferred disk image format. Okay, so it's flexible, efficient for the VM storage as well. Let me type the ls command to check it being moved to .img to qcow2. Perfect. Let's move on to the next section, resizing the qcow2 to a designated size. Let's use, because what this command does is QEMU, okay, -img resize, okay, and once you copy and paste the image to qcow2 and make sure we have the right image size, which is 40 gigabyte in size. Typically we use by general you can use to 25 G as well, because what we are looking here is for designing for fast provisioning and minimal use, so that we can install tools, packages, and also Docker images, etc. So in this, once you I missed the resize in the command, so let me retype it. So what's important here is Proxmox will treat this as the virtual disk size available on the VM. So let me resize, type it rightfully, recheck the command is correct. And once you hit enter, we should have an output saying image resized. Great. So that confirms that the operation was successful. Importing the disk into the unused or used. So let's check. First thing first, we need to run the command qm import disk 5000. So let me type in the command qm import disk 5000 is the node now ID, and we need to copy the JME server cloud image amd64.qcow and make sure we have the hardware. We don't have it mentioned here under the hardware is added. So we also utilizing the local LVM here. So we need to type in the right command as we did wrongly last time. So I'll make sure this time is all correct. QM import disk 5000. Oh, I've copied all. Let me delete it. Import disk 5000. This is the ID of the VM you're attaching the disk to, and typing the image you want to resize it, and with .qcow and the local -lvm. This is the storage for the backend volume group where the disk will be stored. That's the right place. So what happens now is like Proxmox takes the qcow image and converts it into a format compatible with your selected storage backend. So this image is then attached to the unused disk to your VM under the ID 5000. So let's hit enter. Okay, rechecking everything, making sure everything is right, checking the usage as well under the PV local VM, and looks right for me. And give it a second and hit enter, and you can see the transfer of the size to 40 GB and should be successfully imported disk. And you can see the name here, unused 0. So under 5000 you should be able to see under hardware, you should see this listed unused disk 0, and should match with the name from the terminal window. Yeah, looks right. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do some configuration depending upon our need for the disk. So let's move on to select that and click on edit, select the disk. It looks bus driver correctly. You need to also enable SSD emulation and also make sure you have selected the disk card as well. Once you select these options, okay, move on to the next step, which is click on add. and you should be able to see that it's listed here under the hardware, and you should see that the size is 40 GB SSD1 and it is the right VM ID as well. Let's move on to the final step of completion of Ubuntu 22.04 template. So the next step is converting the template and cloning into Kubernetes node. So before that, click on the options and select the start at the boot to be yes. Why are we doing this is to ensure that if the Proxmox node is restarted, the VM or in the future it clones with auto starts with the system. And let's make sure the boot order is right. Click on the edit and rearrange the boot order, still the option tab, and move the number 4, which is local LVM, to number 2, and you should have the 5000. This 0, yeah, looks good, and looks 1 2 3 4. So the order is rearranged, and it depends on how many devices are attached. Adjust it accordingly and click on OK. Once it's all completed, convert this into a template. So right click on the 5000 and you should see the option there, convert to template. Just before that, I like to recheck everything before I click on the convert to the template, because to make sure everything is good, because this will be a golden image ideally for deploying all other VMs for Kubernetes master and worker nodes. So click on yes now, because I'm all comfortable in moving forward. And under the task, where you see under the UI, you should see that the VM 5000 is configured, and the next step is convert to the template, and the shell status is moving. That's circling. So that means we are on the right pace. So what's happening in the background is Proxmox converting the VM into the template, which is now read-only. So you can't power it on or modify it directly. So the next step will be like creating of or cloning the template. So under the VM ID, I will use like 100. So you can choose any unused ID depending upon your need, and mode should be fully clone. So that means you will have the independently copy of it. And name you can utilize as K8M for the master node, or name it accordingly depending on your need. And then storage, leave it as default or choose based on your setup, and click on the clone tab. What happens now is Proxmox creates a new VM by copying from the template disk and configuration. This new VM with the ID 100 named K8M will appear in your node section. That's under the PV data center. Because it is fully cloned, it can be customized, started, and modified independently without affecting the original template. So that's it. Now you have a reusable Cloud-init ready Ubuntu template and your first Kubernetes node clone. Let me know if you like to continue with. The next video will be booting the clone VM, customizing, and running through the master and the worker nodes, joining the Kubernetes cluster. Thank you. If this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Good Shoes. Stay tuned for more tech tips and tutorials. See you in the next one.